Good evening. Tonight we will discuss the Ridgewood Towers fatality. It's a case study analysis by Rebecca, Darius, Apova, Jacob, and William. Our agenda this evening will be the project facts, summary of issues, root cause analysis, conclusions, and resulting actions. Some of the project facts. This project was planned back in 2015 by AB Capstone and S9 Architecture and Engineering. It's going to be a 284,000 square foot mixed use development that's going to raise to a height of 200 feet. It's going to include 129 apartments, 30% of which are affordable to allow for a tax abatement. There's also 89,000 square feet of commercial space. Some additional project facts. The financing started in 2014, $7.7 million and $1 million was spent on adjacent lots. In 2018, $37.5 million was borrowed for land and pre-development costs from Madison Realty Capital. In 2021, another loan of $106 million was borrowed from Madison Realty Capital for construction. The project was rebranded Myrtle Point. It's being represented by Ripco for the commercial space. Currently, Target and Burlington are the anchor tenants. And recently, the building topped out in December of 2022 and is expected to be ready for occupants in 2023. Now I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Thank you, William. I will start off by talking about the summary of issues, what happened, how, and why in the responsible parties, and Rebecca will follow up with contributing factors, OSHA issues, fines, and citations. What happened, how, and why? On April 6, 2022, Olga Molina Pines fell down an approximate 20-foot hole to the basement. He was immediately transported to Wyckoff Hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly after. The day after the incident, DOB issued a full stop work order for the lack of security measures that resulted in Holger's death. Holger was moving a plywood board when he slipped on a beam, which caused him to fall down the hole. There were a number of reasons that caused this incident. These reasons include negligence and human error, lack of adherence to the law, bad weather, and DOB and OSHA's questionable inspections. So who is to blame? While it may seem the construction team bears all the responsibility, it is not so black and white. First and foremost, the development and construction team were 100% in a lot of ways responsible for this event. The site violated DOB and OSHA safety requirements, which specifically states any worker constructing 6 feet or more above a lower level must be protected by a guardrail, safety net, or personal fall arrest systems. It was also raining this day, which could have made services more slippery. Work should have been cut back or canceled altogether. Earlier in March of 2022, they were cited for failure to institute and maintain safety measure violations. While the construction team was resolving this, they should have done the sweep of the rest of the site to make sure everything was up to code. Negligence played a role here when simple minimal cost measures could have been taken to prevent this. A typical guardrail system costs $500. So yes, the construction team bears a lot of the responsibility, if not most. However, DOB and OSHA are also at fault too. On March 22nd, 2022, DOB issued a partial stop work order for failure to institute and maintain safety measures during an on-site inspection. DOB does not make daily inspections, which is why, when they do, it is imperative for them to do extra due diligence while inspecting these sites. While on site, they fail to notice the lack of safety guards. While it is hard to cite and catch every violation, this could shed light on DOB's inefficient way of inspecting sites. This is not a safety violation DOB inspectors should be missing, especially knowing how dangerous not having these safety measures in place can be. I will now pass it on to Rebecca.
Now I'll be discussing the contributing factors of this case. DOB issued 5 full stop work orders after considering that the work on any of the 90,000 square foot property was unsafe for workers. Less than 3 weeks before the fatal accidents of Melona on March 22nd, Department of Building had ordered the construction to be stopped completely because of a failure to maintain safety measure for fall prevention, since there were no safety guardrails in place. Days after inspecting the construction site, the UB inspector found that the contractor had fixed previously noted violated condition and partially lifted the stop work order, which allowed the workers to resume work on the lower floors. Then on April 6th, the contractor found that all the conditions had been met and lifted the stop work order entirely. Now we'll be discussing OSHA fine citations and issues. There are two violations listed for this incident, 01A and 01B, which had a fine for $14,502. But then after some consideration, it was reduced to $11,000. There are currently two open investigations for this project. One related to Malona's death, and the other one dated in July about an unspecific health issues. And now I'll pass it on to approval.
Thank you, Rebecca. Accidents are part of life, but it's our responsibility to take precautions to avoid dangerous outcomes. Mr. Maluna, a 46-year-old worker, fell from first floor beam shaft to the basement through a hole. The evaluation for root cause for such fatal accidents are such. Extreme weather. The day of accident it rained. Even though it does not mention if it rained heavily or not, rain itself is enough to saturate the construction site, which leads to slippery surfaces. For workers working 6 feet and above, it is essential to wear fall protection to avoid any accidents. Lack of law of adherence. Contractor failed to maintain DOB and OSHA guidelines to safety measures for workers. The contractor is required to provide fall protection, rail guards, safety net for workers working 6 feet and above. Inspection error. Even though DOB inspector was present on site, he didn't issue violation for safety measures. On 22nd March, DOB inspector filed violation regarding standpipe and issued work stop partially, and was lifted on April 6 by the same inspector after the violations were met. Even though he was present on site, he did not raise any concerns or issued any violation regarding to lack of safety for workers. The lack of inspection and attention led to the Mr. Monell's accident.
Thank you, Apurva.
With regards to community response, following the issuance of the stop work order, State Senator Jessica Ramos, local leaders, and nearly 40 members of the community gathered to call on the Department of Buildings to completely revoke the construction permit. In turn, the stop work order was partially lifted in May to make the site safe for workers, and in June, the stop work order was fully rescinded. The DOB also informed that they will be conducting random bi-weekly inspections to ensure safety standards are met. Additionally, the Ridgewood Tenants Union demanded from the DOB to hold a public meeting on the steps taken to enforce workforce safety before the new construction permits are approved. RTU leader also called on the DOB to increase fines for negligent construction employers whose unsafe practices cause these types of incidents. Unfortunately, nothing was done in response to what RTU demanded. In the table behind me, you can see total penalties imposed following the incident. In total, safety-related penalties were $95,000, split between the general contractor, AP Capstone Builders Corp., Spring Scaffolding, and CIP Services LLC. We can see that the general contractor was penalized for $75,000. However, they still haven't paid their penalties, and the construction is ongoing. Spring Scaffolding and CIP both paid their penalties, $10,000 each, following the OATH hearing that took place in February this year. The hearing for AB Capstone was adjourned until June 6, 2023. So we still don't know if all the penalties will be paid by the general contractor. There is no civil court case against the general contractor or the project owner for the death of Mr. Molina. Construction injuries are typically considered work-related accidents. Usually only financial penalties are imposed on the contractors responsible for the fatalities. Criminal prosecutions are rare and generally do not apply for these types of incidents. So what this means for the future: total penalties imposed following the incident do not exceed $100,000. Compared to the estimated project costs of approximately $200 million, total fines do not exceed 0.05% of the budget, or the project budget. And for the project of this scope, it's merely a rounding error. Due to low penalties, the contractors are not incentivized to comply with construction safety guidelines and regulations to the fullest extent. This project had violations and stop work orders issued on multiple times. The contractor was failing again and again to meet safety requirements, yet the construction work continued without even the general contractor paying the penalties. Cases like these may force the regulators to increase the penalties for non-compliance for workers' safety guidelines. However, as of now, nothing has yet changed. It's a very intriguing case and very controversial. Thank you for your attention.